All right, so I think we should be recording here. Thank you for anyone tuning in to watch this, for joining us tonight or today, whenever you happen to be watching this program on athletics and recruiting, not only through Center College, but in D3 in general. My name is Thomas Becker. I'm one of the admission counselors here at Center, my alma mater. I'm a 2015 graduate. And I'm going to allow my colleagues here to introduce themselves. So I will turn it first to Pam Boffman.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. My name is Pam Boffman. I am the Associate Dean and Director of Admission. I am a Center alum myself, but I think the role that I treasure most is that I am a Center parent. I have an older son who just is a newly minted Center graduate from the spring, and I have a rising sophomore who is actually a student athlete on campus, and he plays basketball. So you can find me in the corner of the basketball gym cheering the Colonels on and not yelling at the officials. So.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
David DeWitt, you're up next.
Hi, my name is David, and I am a member of the admissions staff as well, and a Center alum. I graduated a long time before either Thomas or Pam did, and I played football here at Center. It would probably be a stretch to say I was an athlete in college, but I was on the team, and one of the people, along with Pam, we're probably the two folks in our office that work most closely with our coaching staff and their recruiting efforts. The entire admission staff obviously has a hand in that, but we're sort of the point people, if you will, which is why we're involved in the discussion this evening or afternoon or whenever you're listening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And last but certainly not least, the current Colonel on the call, JK.
Hello. My name is J.K. Gonzalez. I'm a rising junior, and I'm on a Center men's soccer team. I've been working with the soccer team, but I also kind of have dabbled a little bit on a dive team, just in case there's any divers listening out there.
Hey, thanks for stepping up. That's the quality team mentality going on there.
And J.K., tell folks where your home is.
I'm from Los Angeles, California originally, but I do have a little bit of a space here in Danville, so it's a little bit of a home now.
Hey, that's what we like to hear. So one of the things, we're going to cover a lot of ground in this shorter presentation panel, but it's kind of going to mirror what the recruitment process looks like at Center, what being a student athlete at Center looks like in and of itself, and touching on some of the benefits of that as well. So to begin, I want to be recruited as an athlete at Center College or a school like Center College. David, what's the first thing I have to do?
I think there's maybe a perception that when you're an athlete and you're hoping to continue your athletic career in college, that you need to sit back and wait for a coach to find you, which is, I think, traditionally the way it would work at a Division I NCAA institution. But at a Division III institution, coaches can find you. There are recruiting services. They do a lot of research. So don't be surprised if a coach reaches out to you. But it is absolutely appropriate for you to raise your hand and say, I'm interested in your program, in your school, for you to reach out to a coach or the admission office in any way you want to. Most, I think, college athletic programs on their website will have questionnaires or contact information. You can find an email, a phone number for a coach. There's typically, though, a questionnaire you can fill out and submit some information, and that sort of formally gets you in the system, if you will. What am I missing? Pam or JK?
For a lot of athletes, once you make that initial contact and everything, there'll be ways of getting your highlight reel on there and getting to speak to the coach and have phone call interviews with the coach. So those are the following steps, I would say. But besides that, I think David hit it all.
The one tip I would offer is that colleges will often begin communicating with prospective student athletes via email. And for a generation very used to text messaging, social media might provide some opportunities, but this would be a time, I think, for a really interested student athlete to turn attention to email and start becoming kind of reliant and in the habit of checking that so you can maintain some correspondence with institutions of interest.
Yeah, that's a great call. And yeah, David, go ahead.
Sorry, I did think of one other thing. If you're a high school athlete and you've got an interest in a particular college program, talk with your high school coach. Make sure they understand which schools you are interested in, and they can help you reach out. They may know coaches at those colleges pretty well, in fact.
Yeah, and linking in a lot of these things, being your own self-advocate in this process is so important. I think that one of the things that we admission staff enjoy doing is getting to know you. So yes, your parents can help track down contacts, your guardians, your friends, your coaches, but ultimately we want to get to know you because you are the person who might be calling this place home. So as much as you can self-advocate, as much as you can be the one in contact, we are very accessible, especially at smaller schools. You'll find that a lot. And we like to be in touch. So if I am looking at center, let's take center as a specific example. And this is going to be another question for David, because I know he handles this process for us. And I want to know what the prospects would look like for me even going to a place like center. Is there anything that you can do ahead of time to kind of set yourself up for success or learn more about your prospects at the school?
Yes, and I take it you mean you would like to know if the likelihood of being admitted.
Something like that, yeah, sure.
And possibly have an interest in knowing how affordable a particular college might be.
Correct.
It makes sense for you to pursue that place. There is a process. This is not unique to Center, but we call it an early read or an early estimate with regard to an admission decision and financial assistance. The process for us means we need to collect a certain amount of information from you to be able to give you a realistic sense of what to expect. The essential pieces for us would be a high school transcript through your junior year. If you don't have at least 3 years of high school grades for us to look at, it gets pretty tricky. So this works best after your junior year of high school is over. We need to know what courses you intend to take in your senior year. The rigor of your coursework is a piece of the puzzle for us. Now, this piece may be a little different now. Heretofore, we have required some standardized test scores, either ACT or SAT. We're now moving into a phase where we will consider applicants in a test optional sort of option, meaning if you do not wish to have standardized test scores considered in your admission process, you need not submit them. I would, if you're pleased with your scores, it's not going to hurt for us to have those scores, and would encourage you probably to include them in the information that you give us. So transcript through your junior year, schedule of classes for your senior year, standardized test scores if you choose. Some sort of resume would also be useful, or a simple listing of activities and involvements would be good. Those are really the pieces that can give us a good sense of whether you're a good fit academically for admission. If you're also looking for a financial estimate, then it would be important to file the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. And whenever you're doing this process, you would complete the FAFSA that is available to you at that time, which might not be, if this is in the summer before your senior year of high school begins, it won't be the FAFSA, the version of the FAFSA that you'll ultimately fill out for colleges. That won't be available until October of your senior year. But for purposes of our estimate, whatever is available to you to fill out, it'll be the previous year's version. And with those pieces of information, we can, in most cases, determine whether you're likely to be admitted and give you a really good estimate with regard to financial assistance and scholarship opportunities, et cetera.
That was a very comprehensive answer.
Thank you. Thank you. My request of student athletes and their families is always that we're happy to do this. My ask is that you don't ask us to do that unless center's a pretty serious consideration for you. There's a limit to the volume of these early reads we can handle. And if you're sort of just at the point where you're kind of window shopping and making some price comparisons that way, there are tools on our website, a net price calculator that'll give you a pretty good estimate, and then a simpler tool which will give you a more general but faster answer called My Intuition. But two good tools that can give you a good ballpark sense of what the cost might be. If you need more information, the early read for athletes typically has been done once an athlete has decided center's a very, very good option for them, and they may have received scholarship offers, athletic scholarship offers from a Division I NCAA institution, Division II institution, or an NAIA school, which is a separate governing body for college athletics. So those students then are on the clock, if you will. Someone's made them an offer, they have to respond possibly ahead of our timeline for the normal admission, scholarship, and financial aid process.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Pam, JK? Sound about right? I have a follow-up question for JK, kind of going through this process now. So, you know, in your looking at colleges and universities that you might consider as your home away from home, as your place where you're going to continue playing a sport, as a place where you're going to further your academic endeavors, how did you land on center? How did you land on D3 schools? What did that process look like for you?
So for me, I play soccer. I did club soccer for most of my career before college. So I always had coaches kind of in my ear talking about how to email coaches, how to reach out, how to go to ID camps, you name it, right? But specifically center, I was mostly looking at the academics and stumbled upon a great team with a great coach. So when I kind of found the school for me academically and then found the coach, I just knew it was going to be a fit for me. I spent a weekend here, and had an interview with the coach, saw the field, saw the facilities. I met some of the players and everything. And after that, my decision was kind of just made for me. So, yeah.
Well, and we're very glad that that decision was made for you, that we get
I
to have
remember
you
meeting
around.
you in the lobby of our building
Yeah.
during the visit.
Yeah. I spoke to Bob right after that. And I mean, the rest is history for me. Yeah.
Pam, I wonder if you might also weigh in on this as a parent, not only as someone in our office, right, who has done this, who knows this, but the parent perspective of, you know, how does center work with its prospective student athletes, and what are the things that you might offer to assuage concerns that parents might have, or to kind of give that insider perspective too?
Yeah, that's a good direction to go, because as I listened to JK, I reflected back a little bit on helping my youngest son Carter go through this process, and he had a variety of athletic opportunities that covered some scholarships, and so when you're dealing with different types of schools on different timetables with different priorities, it's easy to kind of get a bit overwhelmed. So he had to step away and really think about, he had to take a step back and think about what his priorities were, but also I wanted him to know it was okay to let some opportunities go, and that really start to narrow the search some. So as a parent, I thought I understood it as a professional, but now after having gone through it as a parent, I realize there's much more of an emotional roller coaster involved in this, depending on how athletic staff members at different institutions are communicating with you, and if some are exerting some pressure, and if your well-being is really at the heart of what they're doing, or if they're just wanting to go ahead and figure out how many athletic scholarships they have. And I understand the nature of their work as well, so it's a fine line, and there's a lot to reconcile and balance. I think for Carter, he got to the point where he realized he wanted to take more time. And once he articulated that to some coaches and he got some responses where they're like, we'll wait on you. We will wait as long as you need. That was really reassuring. And I know that center was very patient in their recruitment of Carter. And that was really welcomed and very, I think, very comfortable. I do think there's a lot of ego involved for athletes, particularly from other people who feel like the mark of a good athlete results and is evidenced by an athletic scholarship. And I think while I understand that, and it is nice for students to have those opportunities, some students are very reliant upon those opportunities as well for financial resources. That doesn't have to decide everything in every case. And I think to walk away from that and figure out what do I really want out of this college experience is really important. And how are you going to best be served? So that's where I think you need to feel comfortable to be connecting with people other than coaches at different institutions to make sure you're getting all of the academic information you need. And some coaches will be able to provide that, but I think admission staff members are really willing. So you know, while our student at center, our prospective students who are connecting with coaches, we also want to be connecting as admission professionals so that we can develop a rapport as well and make sure that we're answering questions and informing students, and we're providing families with the good counsel they need to maneuver the admission and scholarship and financial aid process. So don't forget that your network is very broad at some places for you to gather the information that you need. And I think sometimes you can forget about that because there are lots of schools you're managing and a lot of coaches with whom that you're communicating, but cast that net a little bit broader, I think, and ask for help where you need it.
Yeah, that's something I've encountered quite a bit is, you know, help is available to those that ask for it. And I think that smaller schools especially have the capacity to lend it because it's the way our process is designed. It's the entire creation of the system was let's provide a personal education, and that's only going to begin with a very personal recruitment process and a very intentional application process. And you know, we want to be walking with you through those steps and getting to know you. JK, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what it's like being an athlete at a D3 school. You know, for those who are less familiar with the distinguishing features between Division I, Division II, and Division III within the NCAA. Division III is decidedly the most exceptional. It is one of these things is not like the other. 1 and 2, there are a lot of similarities, but D3 is exceptional in a lot of ways. And JK, I'll let you take first stab at talking about a few of those.
Yeah, I think as a player, one of the big things that kind of is right in your face at the very beginning of the recruitment process is D1 and D2 offer scholarships while D3 does not. And this doesn't mean that it's no scholarship whatsoever, it's just no athletic scholarship. So that was, to me, one of the biggest deciding factors, was having the liberty of saying, I can play soccer here or I can't, and that wouldn't change necessarily who I was going to be on campus, whether or not I was going to be on campus and all that. So at no point did I feel like I had a scholarship waving in front of my face saying, hey, you're here to play and not a student athlete. So that's one of the big things I think I took into consideration. The other thing is I came here to play soccer, but more of a love and passion type thing. I don't necessarily have plans to continue playing soccer. But that being said, it's not impossible. We actually just graduated an All-American in December who's playing professional soccer in California today for the Oakland Roots. So it's very, very interesting the path that you can take in a D3 school. You can take it as, hey, I'm going to play these last 4 years and kind of enjoy these last 4 years without a scholarship kind of pressuring me throughout like my career. Or you can take it really, really seriously and take that next step into a professional setting or a semi-professional setting. So those are a few of the things that I kind of had to take into consideration when thinking about D1, D2, D3.
Yeah, David, I wonder if you could talk about, how we do recognize student athletes for their accomplishments. Especially, you know, like JK said, right? He doesn't have a scholarship hanging over his head to say like, well, if you stop playing, things are going to get real rough for you. Could you speak to how that is integrated into the application process, but then also as a center student? We have folks who come in and will compete for, a year or two and then decide, hey, I'm good. I did my time. Can you talk about what that looks like for folks?
I can. Can I backtrack though a little bit?
Please do, but then talk about that too.
on to what JK was talking about. Athletes at this level, at the Division III level, are take their sport very seriously. They're very competitive. They really want to win, but their sport occupies about 2.5 to maybe 3 hours a day of their time during the season. And then the rest of the time, they're pouring their heart and soul into their studies, into other extracurricular pursuits, all manner of things. My friends will smirk now because I always tell stories. But here's one I like to tell to athletes looking at Center College. I work with transfer students here. And a few years ago, I met with a young lady who was thinking about transferring to Center. She would be coming to us from the University of California, Riverside, one of the regional sort of California system universities. And she was a volleyball player there. And she said she was interested in transferring because she wanted to be a college student. And she told me that at the University of California, Riverside, the volleyball, the athletic program, they besides practice during the season and a certain amount of time in the weight room and a certain amount of time that was required daily in the training room. She met with a dietitian who planned her meals while she was in college. She met periodically with a sports psychologist. The athletic program actually set her class schedule. They decided when she would go to class. And I think she did not say this directly. She implied that they selected her major for her. And I understood that if you play basketball at the University of Kentucky or football at Ohio State, that's probably what you're signing up for. I had no idea that if you played volleyball at the University of California, Riverside, that the sport controlled every aspect of your college experience. So Division III is a full college experience that includes athletics. It's not just athletics. So, okay, that's my soapbox. So
that was a great soapbox. So in thinking about that, how do we integrate athletics into the admission reading process? When we look at an application, when we consider students for that scholarships, is there, of course I know the answer to this, but is there no way for that to be recognized, right? Like if Center's going to be the academic school that also has athletics, does it even matter if I'm good at sports if all you're going to be looking at are my grades?
But that's not all we're going to be looking So uh, small colleges are small communities, and they need people who are doing lots of different things. We need students who are involved in a variety of extracurricular pursuits, including athletics. So we truly do a holistic review when we're reading an application and making both admission decisions and scholarship decisions. And how an individual can contribute to the community we have here extracurricularly is a big piece of that. It's well, I won't bore you with the details of a point system that we use, but extracurricular contribution is just as important to us as your academic performance, those standardized test scores, and the rigor of your coursework from my school. Those are probably the four biggest pieces in how we review an application, and one of them is extracurricular involvement and accomplishment. Our coaches can give us feedback to help us understand how a student might contribute athletically, in the same way that this is okay by NCAA rules. It's very much the same way if a student were to submit a portfolio of artwork. They were a painter and they submitted a portfolio of artwork to the admission office. I might have an opinion about that artwork, but I'm not really capable of judging the quality of it. So I would send it over to one of our art professors and ask them, is this good? Is this somebody that you're excited about? So coaches can give us some feedback in that way. What we can't do is tie a scholarship to your participation in any endeavor, athletic or otherwise here. We can value the fact that you might contribute to our soccer program or our basketball program or baseball or whatever it is. And we can assume that's the thing you'll want to do when you get here. But if you come to school, the extracurricular piece does factor into scholarship offers that we make for general merit scholarships. But regardless of how that works, if you're offered a scholarship here and you, heaven forbid, get injured or just decide you don't want to play soccer anymore, whatever the sport is, the scholarship doesn't go away. We didn't give you a scholarship to play soccer here. We gave you a scholarship to be a student here.
Yeah, that's a really good distinguishing feature. Pam, anything you'd like to add on to that?
Yeah, I think sometimes there are missed opportunities through the application process, and I would encourage a student athlete to take full advantage of a number of the aspects of the application. For instance, on occasion, a student athlete might think that they're being recruited for a sport, and that's really what they need to focus on because we need more insight and we need more details about that. But make sure you tell us everything on the section of your personal commitments that's important to you. That gives us a much better idea of how you commit yourself to your family, your community, your school community. And we're not looking for a long list of 25 memberships, but we're looking for the things that are kind of near and dear to your heart. But if you write about a sport in your essay and then you only list sport is your only extracurricular, and then you go to your coach for your letter of recommendation, and you're only having interaction with maybe a coach at center and not an admission counselor, we're getting an important, but possibly a more narrow idea of you as an individual and what you're passionate about. And so we really want you to take advantage of the application to tell us more about the decisions you've made, what makes you tick, what you're excited about. And that allows us to kind of take all the puzzle pieces and match it together. So think about utilizing that application to be a vehicle that really speaks on behalf of you and communicates to a pretty large group of people. I mean, we have a number of people that can be looking at the application for admission committee members, and coaches aren't involved in that. And like David said, they do communicate with us. And so we have a good sense of families who are working closely with coaches, but we also want the opportunity to work closely with families.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And I think sometimes students fail to list the variety of things they're doing extracurricularly because they assume that means there's an expectation from us that they continue to do all of those things in college. And that's not what's happening. We just want to know what your time commitments were, what all the things you were involved in high school, whether or not you want to continue to do those things when you get to college.
Right. It really does help us get a much more robust picture of who you are as a person, not just as an applicant, not just as an athlete, right? We're not bringing an athlete to our campus. We're not bringing a scholar to our campus. We're bringing a human being with many dimensions of their existence and the things that they're excited about. And that was my natural segue into asking JK, can you speak to some of the things that you're involved in at Center outside of being in a classroom and being a student and being on the field and being an athlete, right? There's a lot more that defines every student athlete at Center than just those two parts of their commitments. And I wonder if you could tell us what you do, but also speak to kind of the balancing aspect of that.
Sure. Well, I kind of usually start off with saying I like being busy. I'm the type of person that enjoys having a schedule that's packed from morning till night, just because it keeps me busy and it keeps me kind of motivated and going. So that being said, I do a variety of stuff on campus. Currently, I am an RA, so a resident assistant for the school. So I'm basically in charge of a hall of some students, upperclassmen this year, first year last year. Say that quickly, right? A little bit of a
Right.
tongue twister there.
Try. Not just kidding.
Yeah. But I do that. But my first year, I worked in the admission office, answering phone calls, answering questions for some parents that would come in, and kind of getting a feel of what they were kind of thinking and letting them know like the information that I have as a first year on campus. And I worked as a center ambassador, so I would give tours, have lunches with people coming in and doing all the tours and visiting campus and everything. I'm also on a center men's soccer team, which in itself has a whole variety of responsibilities and time stuff. But once that's over, I'm kind of free to do whatever I need to do. So I kind of go in and out of both clubs and meetings and friend groups and everything, depending on what's going on and everything. So
Yeah.
there's a bunch of things that I've found myself doing on campus, and I don't think being an athlete has kind of diminished any of the time that I have to do so. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think JK, you bring up a good point in terms of being busy. I think that's more the rule for center students than the exception. I think that we definitely expect and encourage students to be actively involved, whether that structure comes from lots of different organizations or a smaller handful, whether you're involved in Greek life or community service or political activism. There are so many different ways to kind of build that structure. But I would say if there was a typical center student, which of course there really isn't, but is that student is involved. They do a lot of different things. They spend their time wisely in things that they're interested in. And that might be 2 or 3 things outside of their studies, or it might be 5 or 6. But I think that that's pretty typical for center students, but also allows for a higher degree of involvement in things that you might not be able to do, especially as an athlete in a D1 or a D2 program. Pam or David, any thoughts or additions to that?
I would just agree and say I think it's the very rare center student who is just one thing.
Agreed.
Pam? I would want, like you said, Thomas, there's not really a typical center student, but I think a very common thread among center students is that there is this participatory nature, and students want to take an active role in their education. They want to take an active role in their personal development, and they want to take an active role in the commitments that they choose beyond their studies. And I don't think there's a clear divide between what is academic here and what is social. And I think there's very much this nice kind of marriage between, I think, the residential experience and the academic experience, and that academics will complement athletics, athletics will complement academics, performing arts will complement academics, and academics will, complement it in return. So I think there is a nice collaborative spirit as well between our faculty members, our advisors, our coaching staff. There's a lot of communication that happens. And I think that collaborative spirit, I don't want to say that it's rare, because I don't know other places well enough to know the details of it, but I do think it is valued here. And that I think the structure we have faculty mentors for all of our athletic programs. There's an extra layer of academic kind of focus, I think, by having one person who is worried about that sport and the students and their well-being within that sport. So I think we put some things into a structural format that has really helped achieve a balance and helps our students figure out how to become the JK, where you're doing well in your classes, you're doing well in your sport, and now you're moving through the ranks as a resident assistant, and you're also giving tours in your free time. And that time management element doesn't just materialize. I mean, there's a lot of intentional effort that goes into that, and I think JK is a really great example of sort of the development and the maturation of that. So,
agreed. We think you're great, JK. So we're coming up right about the close of what we had planned. I reckon we ought to go around the circle and offer a closing thought or word of advice to folks who are considering going through the recruitment process, are currently in the recruitment process, and or are thinking about being student athletes during their collegiate experience. And we'll go David, then Pam, then JK, and then I'll close this out.
Great.
Okay. The one thing that I wish student athletes knew is that it's okay when you have decided that a college or university is not the right place for you. It's okay to tell the coach that. I think it's, I understand wanting sort of not to burn any bridges and keep a lot of options open, and that makes good sense. But if you've genuinely decided I'm not going to end up at that particular place, I think you just don't want to hurt the coach's feelings. I mean, it's hard to tell somebody I don't want to come to your place. I don't want to be part of your program. I promise you, coaches will be okay. If it'll make life easier for you, if you go on and sort of tell them, I've narrowed my choices down. I've got a short list. These are the places I'm really interested in. If you let the other coaches and the other colleges know that don't make that short list, it'll actually make life easier for those coaches, and it'll make life a lot easier for you too. Sound
advice. Pam?
Absolutely. I'm going to expand a little bit on the experience for families that revolves around student athletes. Selfishly, I'm delighted that my son chose a school where I can still continue to support him and support his teammates and his coaches and program. And I think center people travel pretty well. JK, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
we have the best man SAA for sure.
Our student body is about half of our students come from Kentucky, and other half from various parts of the nation and the world. And so I like to be one of the parents that can travel and then support other students whose parents might live further and not be able to make it to that location for the weekend. So I kind of look at it as another family dynamic, another family atmosphere. And I think it's really fun for the families who get involved in these programs as well. And I think there's some extra nurturing that comes from the team dynamic, but also then the families surrounding the team dynamic that really adds to the experience. And you know, it's nice to have people in the stands. Now, we'll see what direction we go in a COVID world. But so, you know, developments there will dictate a lot of what we do for the coming seasons. But we're really excited to kind of support our student athletes in their academic development, their personal development, and their athletic development. So.
Well said. JK?
I think a lot of worries for a lot of student athletes is, am I going to be able to juggle this? Am I going to be able to handle both the athletic component and the academic component? I think it's okay to give it a try. I think it's okay to go through that process and see how you feel through that process. I've had teammates that said, you know what, 1 year, 2 years is enough. And that's completely fine. They continue to be friends and family. But also keep in mind that your coach doesn't only serve as your coach. He serves as an academic advisor. He serves as an advisor in life, really. So you have help coming from your coach. You have help coming from the school. You have help coming from professors who are really, really understanding of some of the things that we have to go through as athletes. So if it's something that's worrying you, that maybe it's going to be too much, just give it a try and see how you feel. And, I think it's been really, really good for me, and it's actually helped me become more prepared and manage my time a little bit better. And I think I've learned a lot from the academic and athletic experience here at Center.
Awesome. I'm going to build on your point for my last word. And it's know how supported you are as a prospective student athlete and as a student athlete, especially at a place like Center. I often tell folks you have to try to fall through the cracks. You really do. I mean, between your coaches, your advisors, your peers, your faculty members, the admission office that brought you here and wants to see you graduate 4 years later, we are very much invested in success for all students, especially student athletes. It's a significant portion of our campus population, and it's something that we're really proud of. And we really love the way it enriches our community. So don't ever feel like you're an imposition on us, on your friends, on your mentors. That's the one message I wish I could convey to everyone going through this process, but especially student athletes, because as you say, JK, there are these time pressures and juggling things that are very different for a student athlete than there are for a student who might be involved in a handful of clubs and organizations that meet at different times. You know, the level of structure in your life is one that does suck up a few hours of every day. But knowing that you are very much supported in your efforts, I think is a really invaluable thing to know and to live into, and to know that there is no stigma around that at Center. I think that is pretty exceptional for us, that asking for help and being a recipient of it is actually just you taking good advantage of the resources that are available to you. Because at the end of the day, we want to see you succeed. We want to see you graduate, and we want to see you as an invested community member in the larger Center family beyond your graduation. So that's my soapbox that I'm going to get off now. But we are very grateful that you all have tuned in to watch this. Hope you learned a little something here or there. Feel free to be in touch with any of us. Our information is on the Center website, and if you happen to not be able to find it, just look at any of our names in the Zoom box, put a dot in between them, and then put @center.edu, and you'll be able to get in touch with any of us. But thank you for joining us. Hope you learned a little something. Have a great rest of your day, evening, afternoon, and we'll look forward to being in touch with you. Take care.
Thank you.